The alien ship hovered above the Earth's surface, casting a long shadow over the peaceful colony below. From within the massive, sleek craft, the alien general surveyed the human world he had come to conquer. He was a towering figure with dark gleaming armor and a helmet shaped like a menacing skull. His eyes glowed with a fierce determination, and his mind was set on one simple mission: total domination. General Torak was the leader of a powerful alien race known as the Zhirat. Their empire spanned countless star systems, and they had conquered many worlds. Earth would be no different. The human race, with its primitive technology and weak defenses, stood no chance. At least that was what Torak thought. "Prepare to land," Torak commanded, his deep voice echoing through the command chamber of his ship. The officers around him nodded, their faces emotionless, accustomed to the general's cold authority. Torak had never lost a battle. He believed that Earth's fate was sealed before his boots even touched its soil. The ship descended slowly, cutting through the clouds like a blade slicing through air. Torak could see the sprawling human colony below, a small, modest settlement. The people here lived in simple houses, growing their own food and crafting their own tools. He knew they would offer no resistance. As the ship landed with a soft thud, Torak's boots hit the Earth's soil for the first time. The ground was solid, the air was thick with the scent of nature. It was strange, yet familiar. He had visited countless planets, but none like this one. This planet was teeming with life. The Earth's flora was a vibrant green, and the sounds of birds echoed in the distance. For a moment he felt a flicker of uncertainty, but it passed quickly. This world was no different from the others he had conquered. Torak turned to his officers who had gathered behind him. "Search the area. Find their leaders," he ordered. "The humans will surrender quickly." They moved out, their boots, leaving prints in the soft dirt as they walked toward the colony. The people were already beginning to notice the alien presence. Some stared in fear, others in confusion, but none of them moved to stop the aliens. Torak smiled beneath his helmet. He had expected this. Humans were weak. The leader of the colony, an older man with a graying beard, stepped forward. His clothes were simple, a plain tunic and boots, but his eyes were sharp and steady. He stood tall even as the Zhirat soldiers surrounded him. "What do you want?" the man asked, his voice calm though his heart raced with fear. Torak stepped forward, his towering form casting a shadow over the human. "Your world belongs to us now," he said. "You will surrender. Your people will be slaves to the Zhirat Empire, and your planet will be ours to exploit." The man, whose name was Samuel, did not flinch. He stared into the eyes of the general, unwavering. "You can take our world, but you'll never break us," Samuel replied, his voice strong despite the fear creeping into his heart. Torak's eyes narrowed, a hint of amusement flashing across his face. He had seen this before. Humans often spoke, bravely in the face of certain defeat, but it always ended the same. Resistance was futile. "We shall see," Torak said, raising his hand. "Take him." Two Zhirat soldiers stepped forward and grabbed Samuel by the arms, dragging him toward the alien ship. The humans in the colony scattered, some trying to run, others trying to hide. But Torak's forces moved quickly, taking control of the area. The humans were no match for the advanced technology and superior strength of the Zhirat. Torak looked around at the colony, satisfied with the ease of the conquest. The humans were no threat to him. As he turned to walk back to his ship, a faint sound caught his attention, a rustling in the bushes nearby. He paused, listening intently. The sound came again, closer this time. Torak's hand instinctively went to the hilt of his sword. He motioned for his soldiers to stay alert. From the shadows of the bushes, a figure stepped forward. At first glance, the human seemed unremarkable. Just a man, dressed in the plain, rugged clothes of a colonist. His face was covered in dirt and grime, and his hair was unkempt, but his eyes held something that made Torak pause. The man was staring directly at the general. "Who are you?" Torak asked, his voice low and cautious. The human did not flinch. "I'm Marcus," he said simply, "and I won't let you take this planet." Torak raised an eyebrow. You think you can stop me? He asked, his voice laced with disbelief. He was used to humans cowering in fear, begging for mercy. But this man, this human, stood tall, his posture firm, his voice strong. I don't think. I know, Marcus replied, pulling a small, crude weapon from his side. A simple firearm by human standards. It was no match for Zerat technology, but it was enough to get the point across. His hand was steady, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. Torak's soldiers raised their weapons, preparing to strike, but the general held up a hand to stop them. He studied Marcus for a moment, intrigued. This human wasn't like the others. Most would have dropped to their knees by now begging for mercy, but this one, he had the same fire in his eyes that the greatest warriors of the Zerat possessed. It was almost admirable. You are a fool, Torak said, stepping forward. Do you think you can defeat me with that? He motioned toward the firearm. Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he shifted his stance, his eyes never leaving Torak's. He wasn't afraid. He knew this fight was not going to be easy, but he would fight. Do you think your weapons are superior? Marcus asked, his voice steady. Torak looked at him and smiled. I know they are, he said. But you are brave, human. I will give you that. With that, Torak drew his own weapon, a sleek alien blade that glowed with a soft, ominous light. He twirled it in his hand, preparing for the inevitable. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't lower his weapon. He stood his ground. It was clear now. This would not be a simple conquest. Torak had picked the wrong human. General Torak stood tall, towering over Marcus. His alien blade hummed in the air, the glow casting eerie shadows around them. Marcus didn't flinch. His stance remained firm, his grip tight on the simple firearm he carried. It was a weapon that could do little against the alien general's advanced technology, but it was all Marcus had. Why don't you drop that and surrender? Torak asked, his voice filled with a cold amusement. You can't win, human. There is no escape. Marcus didn't respond. His eyes were locked on Torak's, unblinking. The general's words hung in the air, but they didn't seem to faze him. The longer they stood there, the more Torak's confidence grew. He had faced the most fearsome warriors across the galaxy, and none had ever withstood his power for long. This human was just a distraction, a small problem to be swept away before continuing the conquest of Earth. Do you think your primitive weapons will stop me? Torak sneered, taking a step forward, his boots crushing the dirt beneath him. I have crushed armies, shattered worlds, and destroyed empires. You are nothing. Marcus remained silent. He didn't lower his weapon, but his expression softened slightly. There was no fear in him, just a quiet resolve. You think I'm a fool? Marcus said after a long pause, his voice steady. But I'm not. I know what you are. Torak raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And what is that? You're a conqueror. You think strength and technology can win wars. But that's not the whole story, Marcus replied. It's not just about firepower. It's about knowing how to fight, knowing your enemy. And you're about to learn why you picked the wrong human. Torak chuckled. Is that a threat? Do you think you can teach me a lesson, human? Without waiting for a response, Torak lunged forward, his alien blade flashing in the sunlight. He moved with terrifying speed, but Marcus was already anticipating his attack. In a split second, Marcus dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the deadly swing. The ground beneath him cracked as the blade struck, leaving a deep gash in the earth. The general's eyes widened, surprised by the human's agility. He had expected Marcus to be slower, easier to subdue. Instead, the human was quicker than he had thought. He swung again, this time in a wide arc, aiming to strike Marcus down in one swift motion. Marcus rolled to his feet, dodging the strike. He moved with purpose, his steps measured. The general's blade missed by mere inches. Marcus didn't hesitate. He fired his weapon, aiming straight for Torak's chest. The bullet hit the general's armor, but it didn't penetrate. It bounced off with a loud clang, the impact only slightly rattling Torak. He looked down at the dented spot, unbothered. Is that all you've got, human? He asked, a smirk on his face. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he quickly scanned his surroundings. There was no cover here, just an open field with scattered rocks and trees. The human had no chance against the sheer might of the Girard army, but he was used to fighting with less. He'd faced worse odds before. Torak was already advancing again, his blade ready to strike, but Marcus was prepared. He reached behind him and pulled a small device from his belt. It was a simple EMP grenade, one of the few weapons that could disable alien technology even for a short while. As Torak charged, Marcus tossed the grenade at the general's feet. The explosion wasn't large, but it was enough to send a wave of electromagnetic pulses through the air, temporarily disabling the general's energy shield. Torak's movements slowed for a split second, just enough for Marcus to take advantage. With quick precision, he fired several shots at the general's exposed side. This time the bullets found their mark. Torak staggered back, more surprised than injured, as the impact of the bullet sent ripples across his armor. "You're not the only one with tricks up your sleeve," Marcus said, panting. He knew the general would recover quickly, but for now he had bought himself a few seconds. Torak growled in frustration, his anger rising. He hadn't expected this human to be so resilient, so resourceful. He was used to his enemies crumbling before him, but this human was different. He was not just fighting for survival. He was fighting with purpose. "You will regret this," Torak hissed, his eyes glowing with fury. "You should have surrendered when you had the chance. I will." "Break you?" "I don't break," Marcus replied coldly, lowering his weapon but keeping his eyes locked on Torak. "And I won't stop until this is over." For a moment, there was a standoff between the two. The general's eyes blazed with anger, while Marcus stood ready, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The fight was far from over, but Marcus had proven one thing: he wasn't going down without a fight. Torak's soldiers, seeing their general momentarily stunned, began to advance, but Torak raised his hand, signaling them to stop. He was not about to let this human humiliate him further in front of his own army. "You've made a mistake," Torak said, his voice low and dangerous. "I have fought in wars where entire species have fallen. You think you can stop me with your petty tricks and outdated weapons? You are just a fleeting moment in my path to domination." Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon. "Maybe, but you still haven't realized something. You may have power, but I have something you'll never understand." "And what is that?" Torak asked, his tone mocking. "Human will," Marcus answered with a determined look in his eyes. "The will to fight when everyone else says you're lost. The will to never give up. The will to keep going, no matter what." Torak's expression darkened. He didn't understand, but he would. He would soon learn that underestimating a human was a mistake he wouldn't be allowed to make again. The ground trembled beneath them as General Torak regained his composure. His armor hummed with power, and the faint glow of his energy shield began to pulse again, signaling that the temporary disruption had passed. The alien general's eyes burned with rage. The human before him was a mere speck, yet he had managed to land a few blows, enough to make Torak pause, enough to make him feel something. "You're starting to annoy me, human," Torak growled, tightening his grip on his weapon. "But you're not going to survive this." Marcus stood a few paces away, still breathing heavily but standing firm. His mind raced as he quickly assessed his options. He knew he couldn't take the general head-on, not without more firepower, but he also knew something Torak didn't. Humans had an uncanny ability to adapt, to outthink and outlast their enemies. Marcus shifted his weight and looked around. The area was still wide open with no cover except the trees in the distance and the scattered rocks around them. The general had superior strength, advanced weapons, and an army behind him. But Marcus had something else: knowledge of his surroundings, and the will to keep going no matter the odds. Torak began to advance again, slowly, deliberately. His boots crunched against the ground with each step, each movement calculated. The alien general knew that Marcus was running out of options. His weapon was no match for the might of Torak's blade, and the EMP grenade had only delayed the inevitable. This time Torak was determined to end the fight. With a sudden burst of speed, Torak lunged forward, his blade flashing through the air with deadly intent. Marcus barely managed to sidestep, the sharp edge of the blade grazing his arm. A sharp sting of pain shot through his body, but he didn't stop. He wasn't going to give up. Torak's anger was growing, and it showed. He swung his blade again, this time with more force, more power. The strike was designed to kill, one single move that would sever Marcus's body in two. But Marcus was faster. He ducked low, rolling to the side just in time. His fingers brushed against the dirt, feeling the cool earth as he pulled himself up quickly. But Marcus didn't stay on the defensive. He knew he couldn't afford to simply avoid Torak's attacks. He had to be more than just a moving target. Marcus grabbed a rock from the ground and hurled it toward the general's face, distracting him long enough to get in close. Torak, surprised by the sudden tactic, staggered back just slightly. It was enough. Marcus pressed forward, using his gun again, but this time aiming for the exposed joints in Torak's armor, the vulnerable spots where the alien's technology was weakest. The shots hit. Torak roared in frustration as the bullets cracked against his armor, leaving small dents. He had not expected this human to be so relentless, so creative. The damage wasn't significant, but it was enough to shake his confidence. You will pay for this," Torak spat, his eyes flashing with fury. The general stepped back and raised his blade again, preparing for another strike. But Marcus wasn't finished. He quickly scanned his surroundings again. The trees, the rocks. There had to be a way to use them to his advantage. His eyes locked onto a large boulder nearby. The rock was big enough to provide cover, and it had a jagged edge that could be used as a weapon. Marcus's mind worked quickly, thinking of a plan. He dashed toward the boulder, his legs pumping with speed, his heart pounding in his chest. Torak followed closely, his blade slicing through the air as he aimed to take down his opponent. But Marcus was ahead of him. Reaching the boulder, Marcus pressed himself against it for cover, his back against the rough surface. He peeked around, it just as Torak came charging forward. With one swift motion, Marcus grabbed the jagged rock and hurled it directly at Torak's helmet. The general's head snapped to the side as the rock collided with his face. His helmet cracked under the impact, and for the first time, Marcus saw a flicker of vulnerability in Torak's eyes. The alien general stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. Marcus didn't waste the opportunity. He rushed forward, firing his weapon again. This time the shots landed on Torak's weakened armor, causing sparks to fly. The general staggered, his footing slipping on the uneven ground. "You're still standing?" Torak gasped, his voice more bewildered than angry now. "Why won't you fall?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. He had no intention of giving up, not when he had come this far. The alien general let out a guttural growl, shaking his head as if to clear the confusion. His rage was growing, and this time it was clear that he wouldn't hold back. He raised both hands, charging up his weapon for a devastating blast. Marcus's heart raced. He had no time to react, no time to dodge. Torak was going to unleash everything he had, but Marcus was prepared. As Torak's weapon powered up, Marcus made his move. He sprinted at the general, diving toward his feet. The move was risky, dangerous even, but it was his only shot. With all his strength, Marcus shoved against Torak's legs, throwing off the general's balance. Torak stumbled backward, his weapon misfiring and sending a blast of energy into the air, scattering rocks and debris. The explosion rocked the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the ground. For a moment, everything was chaos, but Marcus didn't stop. He pressed the advantage, climbing to his feet and rushing at the general's exposed side. His gun was still in his hands, and this time he aimed directly for the weak spot on Torak's armor, the gap where the armor met the general's neck. The shot rang out, the impact sending a jolt through Torak's body. His eyes widened, and, for the first time, the great alien general staggered as if the world had shifted beneath him. Marcus stepped back, his chest heaving. He wasn't done, but he could see it now. Torak was faltering. He was no longer the unstoppable force he once seemed. For the first time, the human had the upper hand. General Torak staggered, his body weakened from the unexpected blows. His armor was damaged, and for the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced: uncertainty. The human before him, Marcus, had proven to be far more resourceful and dangerous than he had ever imagined. The Zirat general had underestimated humanity, and it was costing him. For a moment, Torak stood still, trying to steady himself. His energy shield flickered, and his advanced technology groaned as it struggled to maintain its full power. He could hear the sound of his heart beating in his chest, a reminder that even the most powerful warrior had limits. Marcus watched the general carefully, his breath steady despite the chaos that had unfolded. His weapon was ready, his body tense, prepared for whatever Torak would do next. He could feel the weight of the moment, the pressure of the fight. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity would not be easily subdued. "You're weaker than I thought," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying across the stillness. Torak's eyes narrowed, his anger flaring once again. "You speak too much, human," he growled. "You should have surrendered when you had the chance. I will end this now." The general stepped forward, his large frame moving with a menacing grace. He raised his blade, preparing for a final strike. But Marcus was ready. He knew that he could not continue fighting in an open field. The space between them was too wide, too exposed. He needed to outsmart Torak, not just outfight him. With a sudden motion, Marcus turned and sprinted toward the trees at the edge of the clearing. Torak followed, his footsteps heavy behind him, confident that the human would not be able to escape. But Marcus had a plan. As he reached the thickest part of the forest, he ducked behind a large tree, hidden from the general's view. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. He needed to create a trap, something that would turn the tide in his favor. Torak emerged from the clearing moments later, his eyes scanning the area. He had seen Marcus run, but he didn't expect the human to simply disappear into the forest. "Coward," Torak muttered to himself, though his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. The alien general took slow, deliberate steps into the woods, his blade at the ready. He knew the human would try to hide, but Torak also knew that no human could outsmart him for long. He would find him, and when he did, Marcus would regret ever challenging the Zirat Empire. Marcus waited, hidden in the shadows, watching as Torak moved deeper into the forest. He could hear the heavy steps of the general, the rustling of the underbrush as he passed by. This was it. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the tree, moving silently toward a large boulder near the edge of the clearing. He had positioned it just perfectly. With quick hands, he activated the small explosive device he had been carrying. It was simple but effective, enough to cause a small but powerful blast. The device was set. Marcus ducked back behind the tree, his eyes locked on the path ahead. He knew Torak would be close. It didn't take long. Torak's footsteps grew louder, closer. Marcus's heart raced as the general moved toward the trap. He could see the alien's glowing eyes just beyond the trees. Then with a sudden flash, Torak stepped right into the blast zone. The explosion rang out, echoing through the forest. The boulder, dislodged from its resting place, rolled toward Torak, striking him with a force that sent him flying backward. The general was knocked off his feet, crashing into a nearby tree. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, Torak let out a roar of anger, his body writhing in pain. His armor was damaged and his energy shield flickered out entirely. He had not expected the human to turn his surroundings against him so effectively. You dare?" Torak's voice was thick with rage as he stood up, using his blade to push himself to his feet. Marcus stepped forward, his eyes narrowed. He had done it. The general was vulnerable, his armor and technology temporarily disabled. But Marcus knew this would be his only chance. He needed to finish what he had started. Torak shook his head, his eyes wild with fury. "You think you've won? You're nothing compared to the might of the Zirat." With a loud growl, Torak charged forward again, his blade raised high. But Marcus was faster. He had anticipated this move. As Torak swung his weapon, Marcus dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the strike. He didn't hesitate for a second. He aimed his firearm once again at the weak spots in Torak's armor, firing several shots at the gap between the alien general's helmet and chest plate. The shots hit with a force that made Torak stumble back. He howled in pain, his anger reaching its peak. "Enough!" Torak shouted. "I will destroy you, human." Marcus didn't speak. He was focused, calculating his next move. He could see the general's weakness now, the cracks in his armor, the flickering of his energy shield. Torak was no longer the unstoppable force he had been at the beginning of the fight. The human had worn him down, broken his confidence. Torak's next attack came faster than the last. He moved with a speed that Marcus had not expected, his blade slicing through the air toward him, but Marcus was ready. He ducked low, avoiding the blade by mere inches, and reached for another rock. With a swift motion, Marcus hurled the rock directly at Torak's face. It collided with the general's helmet, causing another crack to form. Torak staggered, his vision impaired for just a moment. It was enough for Marcus to make his move. Marcus sprinted forward, his hands steady despite the adrenaline rushing through his veins. He fired once more, aiming for the vulnerable spot at the neck of Torak's armor. This time, the shot hit true. Torak let out a strangled cry as his head jerked back. His body collapsed to the ground, his blade slipping from his hand. For a long moment, everything was still. Torak's breathing was heavy and his movements were sluggish. He was on the ground, defeated. The mighty general who had once crushed entire armies now struggling to stay conscious. Marcus stood over him, his body aching but his spirit unbroken. He had done it. He had beaten the alien general. "You were wrong," Marcus said softly, his voice steady. "Humans don't just survive. We fight, and we win." The alien general, his strength finally drained, could only glare at Marcus, his pride shattered. The human had proven that even the greatest conqueror could fall. Torak's breathing was ragged, his chest rising and falling with each desperate breath. The alien general had been knocked down, his energy shield destroyed, and his armor was now full of dents and cracks. For the first time in his long career, he felt vulnerable. The mighty Zerat general, known for his ruthlessness and invincibility, was on the ground, facing a human who had somehow outsmarted him at every turn. Marcus stood over him, his weapon still in hand, ready for whatever might come next. His body ached from the relentless battle, but his mind was sharp, focused. He had been through worse, much worse. And yet, here he was, with a chance to defeat the alien who had come to take his world. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The battlefield was eerily quiet, the sounds of the forest fading into the background. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment. He knew this wasn't just about him. This was about every human who had ever fought to protect their home, their family, their planet. "You're not going to win," Torak growled from the ground, his voice low and filled with frustration. He tried to move, but his body was too weak, too battered from the fight. Marcus didn't answer. There was no need. He could see the truth in Torak's eyes. He was finished. The general had underestimated humanity, and now he was paying the price for it. "You think you've won," Torak spat, "but you haven't. You may have defeated me, but the Zerat Empire is vast. Even if I fall, another will take my place. You are nothing compared to the power of the galaxy." Marcus shook his head. He had heard enough of this. "Maybe you're right," he said quietly, his voice steady. "But the Zerat Empire hasn't learned what humans are capable of, and that's why you've lost." Torak's eyes narrowed in confusion. "What do you mean? You think you can stop an empire? You're just one man. You have no idea what you're up against." "I know exactly what I'm up against," Marcus replied. "I've faced worse. But what you don't understand is that it's not just about strength. It's about will. We'll fight, we'll adapt, and we'll find a way to win. And right now that means you're going to lose." Torak's frustration boiled over. He reached for his blade, but Marcus was faster. He fired another shot, this time hitting the alien's hand and forcing him to drop his weapon. The general roared in anger, his eyes blazing with fury. But Marcus didn't flinch, he didn't move. "You're finished," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm. "Your empire is finished." Torak struggled to sit up, his body shaking with effort. His pride, once unshakable, was gone. For the first time, he realized that the human had truly outsmarted him. He had underestimated Marcus at every turn, thinking that brute force and advanced technology could win him the fight, but Marcus had shown him something else, something the general had never considered: the power of human determination. "You may have defeated me," Torak said through gritted teeth, his voice full of spite. "But you will never defeat the Shirat. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." "I don't need to defeat your entire empire," Marcus replied, stepping closer. "I only need to stop you, and I've done that." Torak's eyes filled with rage. "You think you've won? You have no idea what you've just done. You've only angered the Zirat. The war will come to your doorstep and you'll be crushed beneath the weight of it." Marcus paused, looking down at the fallen general. "I've faced worse threats than you, and you've made one mistake, Torak. You thought we would just bend and break, but we don't. We fight back." Torak's expression hardened, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. He had underestimated the human time and time again, and now he was facing the consequences of that mistake. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Marcus continued. "I'm not afraid of your empire. I'm not afraid of anything, and neither are the people I fight for. You've made a mistake, and I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences." The general's glare intensified, but there was no fight left in him. He was too weak, too battered from the fight. His body was failing him, and he knew it. There was nothing he could do to change the outcome now. "You may have won today, human," Torak muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "But the galaxy won't forget this. The Zirat will come for you, they'll come for your world." Marcus nodded, his expression hardening. "Let them come. We'll be ready, and we'll win." For the first time, Torak said nothing in response. He simply closed his eyes and let out a heavy sigh. He had fought bravely, but he had lost. The human had proven that there was more to warfare than power, technology, and strategy. There was something deeper, something the Zirat had never understood, something that would make all the difference in the battles to come. Marcus stood tall, looking down at the general one last time. He didn't need to say anything more. The fight was over. The human had won. This part focuses on Marcus's victory over General Torak, with the general finally realizing the mistake he made in underestimating humanity. Marcus's calm determination and belief in the strength of the human spirit come through clearly as he stands victorious in the face of overwhelming odds. The tension continues to rise as Marcus knows that the war may be far from over, but for now, he has won the battle. Let me know if you'd like any further adjustments or additional parts. The forest was quiet once more, the heavy breaths of the fallen alien general the only sound in the stillness. Marcus stood a few feet away, his gun still in his hand, his eyes never leaving Torak. The battle was over, but Marcus knew this wasn't the end. He had defeated one alien general, but the war was far from finished. The Zirat Empire was vast, and this victory would not go unnoticed. Torak's final words echoed in his mind. "The Zirat will come for you. They'll come for your world." But Marcus wasn't afraid. The defeat of General Torak had proven something to him. It wasn't just about weapons or technology. It was about the will to fight, the determination to protect what mattered, and humanity had that in abundance. Torak lay on the ground, his body bruised and battered, his armor shattered. His once proud and powerful figure was now a shell of what it had been. His eyes glared at Marcus with pure hatred, but they also carried something else, a hint of respect. "You," Torak coughed, his voice weak. "You're not like the others. You're different." Marcus didn't reply at first, he simply watched the alien general carefully. His instincts told him to remain cautious. The fight was over, but Torak was still alive. He couldn't afford to let his guard down just yet. "I told you," Marcus said finally, his voice steady. "Humanity is different. We don't give up. Not when something's worth fighting for." Torak let out a low, strained laugh. You think you've won. But even if I fall, the Zhirat will come for you. Your victory is nothing but a fleeting moment. They will come, and they will destroy. Everything you know, Marcus shook his head. I'm not afraid. The Zhirat will come. But they'll have to face every human on this planet. And we will fight back no matter what. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with tension. The general's pride, his arrogance, had been shattered. Marcus had proven that humans were not to be underestimated, and that realization had changed everything. Then, something unexpected happened. Torak's hand twitched. He tried to move but couldn't. His body was too injured. His energy drained from the battle. He stared up at Marcus, a strange look in his eyes, almost as if he were struggling with some inner conflict. I never thought, Torak began, his voice faltering. I never thought a human would defeat me. You've done what no one else has. But you don't understand. The Zhirat are relentless. They will not stop. Your victory, small as it is, will be nothing compared to the war that's coming. Marcus looked down at the alien, his expression unreadable. Maybe, he said, but I've learned something today, Torak. We fight. Not because we think we'll win, but because we have to. And when we fight together. That's something your empire will never understand. Torak's eyes flickered with something that resembled doubt. He had come to Earth with a single mission, to conquer, to dominate. He had believed that humans were weak, easily crushed beneath the power of the Zhirat. But now, lying defeated in the dirt, he realized how wrong he had been. Marcus's words rang in his ears. We fight together. I don't know if you'll win, Torak said, his voice barely a whisper. But I've seen enough to know that you'll make the Zhirat regret underestimating you. You may have beaten me, but the war is far from over. If you are to survive, you will need more than just bravery. You will need strength. Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering the general's words. He had known the fight was only the beginning, but hearing them from Torak made the reality of what lay ahead even clearer. The Zhirat Empire wasn't going to let a human victory go unanswered. But Marcus wasn't afraid. He had seen what humanity was capable of. He had seen the strength in every person who fought for their home, their family, their planet. We'll be ready, Marcus said, his voice calm. We'll be ready for whatever comes next. Torak's expression softened for just a moment, as if the weight of his defeat had finally sunk in. The once powerful general, a symbol of invincibility, was now at the mercy of a single human. It was a humbling moment for him, one that would mark the end of his arrogance. You don't know what you're facing, Torak whispered. But I have no doubt you will fight. You are a worthy opponent. Marcus didn't speak. He simply nodded, his grip tightening around his weapon. He wasn't sure if Torak had meant the words as a compliment, but he didn't care. The fight was over, but the war was still coming, and Marcus was ready for it. Just then, a low hum filled the air. Marcus's head snapped toward the sound. In the distance, the faint outline of more alien ships appeared on the horizon, their dark shapes casting long shadows over the land. The Zhirat had arrived. Torak's eyes widened as he saw the ships. I told you, he said weakly, his voice almost a whisper. Marcus's heart raced, but he didn't flinch. The Zhirat were here, and they were ready to finish what their general had started. But Marcus wasn't afraid. He had learned a long time ago that fear was the enemy of progress. Fear had no place in the fight for freedom, for survival. We're not done yet, Marcus said, his voice strong. He turned and began to move toward the ships, his every step filled with purpose. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. He knew that he couldn't fight it alone. But together, with the strength of every human on Earth, they could stand against the Zhirat Empire. And they would win.